Harry and Meghan made an appearance at Global Citizen Live in New York City's Central Park, and they displayed several body language clues that can be useful to upgrade your own public speaking skills. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it will be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. Meghan does something in this speech that is very helpful for any of us, and there's a very good example of that good technique in this 15-second clip.
The most brilliant scientists, researchers, frontline workers, and selfless public health leaders have risked their lives to protect our global community. They are our humanitarian heroes.
You already know that I'm no Meghan fan, but I've always mentioned her public speaking skills, and one of the things she gets right is the rhythm of her delivery. For a speech to be impactful, you write it using clusters of 1 or 2 sentences, and the sentences should be delivered in a resonating way. To do it, you start to speak a little bit faster, then you progressively reduce your speaking speed until you deal the final blow of that cluster with emphasis. Yes, I just did exactly that. Now that you're aware of how it works, let's hear her again so you can confirm how this technique works.
The most brilliant scientists, researchers, frontline workers, and selfless public health leaders have risked their lives to protect our global community. They are our humanitarian heroes.
Now, that's something that Meghan gets right, and you can use it in public speaking or business presentations. But what about Harry? Let's listen to this clip and compare.
But we're battling more than the virus alone. This is a battle of misinformation, bureaucracy, lack of transparency, and lack of access.
The problem with Harry's delivery is that he cuts with so many pauses that he ends up stalling the pacing of his sentences. It sounds forced and it makes it harder to understand. Now, pay attention to Harry's body language when it's Meghan's turn to talk and try to describe what do you feel when you look at him.
Every single person on this planet has a fundamental right to get this vaccine. That's the point, but that's not happening. And while in this country and many others you can go almost anywhere and get vaccinated, billions of people around the world cannot.
He looks really uncomfortable at that moment. But if you've been following Harry for a while, you already know that he's always been quite awkward in public. It's very difficult for him to truly relax. My theory is that he's too self-aware, and at the same time he has been open about not being interested in the spotlight. But if they want to make a living doing... wait, what do they do for a living again? Well, whatever. The fact is that those dynamics look awkward because they don't look like teammates. And I think the main difference is the spotlight. Meghan just loves it, and that's okay. But the problem is when you add Harry to the mix. And in what they do, image and communication plays a huge part. I'm not a fashion expert, but I think the way they both were dressed to speak at that time was a good decision. Mainly, the neutral colors always work really well to not get in the way of your message. But again, I think every one of us should play into our skills and strengths while either avoiding our weaknesses or, in the last case scenario, improving them in some way. Because I think it's wrong to assume that everyone can do everything well, like someone good at math and literature and art and physical education. Every one of us has a different set of skills. But communication, being able to communicate a message or deal with an audience, is something that everyone has to learn at some point. It's like Naomi Osaka. It's understandable that after a grueling tennis match, you'll be destroyed both physically and psychologically. And then, sitting down to answer questions about your performance, having to give answers that maybe she doesn't have for herself, could be very stressing. Not everyone can handle this. But the same principle of constant practice applies here. If you're afraid of doing something, if you're afraid of public speaking, there are no tricks, there are no shortcuts besides practice and more practice. And if it's something that causes you anxiety, then get used to rehearse the situation in your mind over and over again. If you're afraid of certain questions, make a list of them and rehearse the answer in your mind. Your mind won't tell the difference and will get used to the idea of handling that stage fright or whatever causes you anxiety. And I know that Harry is not interested in that because no matter how much you say passionate speech, his body language speaks for itself.
But we're also coming together because this pandemic will not end unless we act collectively with an unprecedented commitment to our shared humanity. The vaccine must be distributed to everyone, everywhere.
I mean, he's not standing tall, he's just drifting his body weight from one foot to the other. There's no emphasis in his voice, and we listen to the same constant pausing over and over again. But to be fair, in the next clip, Harry looks more confident when speaking.
We have what we need to vaccinate the world, but the experts told us here's what's getting in the way. They said many countries are ready to produce vaccines at home, yet they aren't allowed to, because ultra-wealthy pharmaceutical companies are not sharing the recipes to make them.
Well, he still has those unstable poses, but he's got a better posture. His chin is not tucked into his chest, but in a more neutral angle, and he doesn't look as tense as a few minutes before. It's normal that if you're nervous when you're going to give a speech, you will look more tense at first, and after a couple minutes, the first positive feedback from the audience, you will relax and feel more confident. But this is also a sign that you have not practiced that first impression, the first words, sentences that set the tone of what the audience expects of you. And that makes me think that Harry doesn't take this public speaking, public appearances seriously. And again, it makes sense since he left his royal duties because he wanted a more normal life. And you might wonder why Meghan has been right by his side for long enough, already knows that he's a lousy public speaker and hasn't done anything about it? Strange. I've seen comments along the lines of, but that's being natural, that's being yourself. If you control your body language, you will sound and act like a robot. And nothing can be further from the truth. In fact, people confuse the terms natural and awkward. If you go on stage and pretend to deliver a message without enough practice and guidance from a public speaking expert, you will be awkward. Your message will fall short. Those TED Talk speakers that you feel so natural and gifted and smooth in their deliveries because they have practiced many hours to give the speech in a fluent manner and without losing their own personal voice. Now, can you imagine the irony that Harry's job is Chief Impact Officer? I mean, the word impact is right there in your title, and you speak in public like this? And they are also getting into finances as impact partners. I don't know, if you're in the impact business, and it sounds a lot like a glorified influencer business, don't you think that maybe you should try a little bit harder? But I already know Harry's answer. Nah, I'll be fine. If you want to support my channel, all you have to do is become a member by hitting the join button down below. Don't forget to download my 100 body language tips that you will find right in the description. Take care, my body language buddies.